Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. You might have noticed that I've changed its name. It's now Murders, Mysteries and more. If you haven't noticed, welcome. I am doing something a little different, moving away from forensics per se, and I'm going to start talking about things that I find interesting and have taken me on a bit of a journey. So I'm taking you there as well. So today, let's get down to it. We're talking about the phrase in cold blood. Boom, boom, boom. In cold blood. What does it actually mean and where did it come from? Now, if you are like me, you see this phrase everywhere on TV. And of course, I know what that means, but I have been pushed to look into it a little deeper when I started watching the X-Files recently. Yeah, I'm totally late to this party. Like, I obviously remember X-Files from childhood, but I also don't really remember it. So I tried to binge watch it and it's kind of repetitive. But I guess when you have to wait a week for each episode, you do actually forget that they already did that. And hang on, that didn't quite make sense to what you said last season. Oh, the luxury of a more patient audience. Anyway, so in this episode, Scully shouts, "Some guy, he did it in cold blood!" And I would find that scene, but honestly, they are all merging into one. And I'm actually stopped watching it now because it's kind of boring. But anyway, going back to it, of course, again, we all really do know what it means, that it means committing a crime without emotions or remorse or empathy. And in this particular episode, the killer didn't even know the victims and therefore didn't care about them. It was all spontaneous stabbing. But in cold blood death isn't from a stranger necessarily, or an assassin or a contract killer. It just means that a person who kills in cold blood has done it deliberately and calculatedly. Calculatedly? Is that a word? Hmm. So for an example, I'm walking down the street, someone bumps into me and I'm mad about it. But I go home, think about it, think about how I'm going to get them, kill them, stab them in the street. And then I'm also thinking about what I might have for dinner. And then off I go, commit the crime. And I don't really care. I've done it. So when we say a crime was committed in cold blood, we are emphasizing that cold-hearted, unfeeling nature of the act, opposite to a crime of passion or impulse. Oh my God, you don't love me? Oh. So it's more premeditated and detached. A legal term that corresponds closely to the concept is typically premeditated murder or first-degree murder. Now, these terms describe a specific category of homicide where the perpetrator consciously and intentionally plans and carries out the killing, often without provocation or significant emotional disturbance at the time of the crime. So how did in cold blood become a popular phrase? Well, it did gain prominence in the 60s through Truman Capote's non-fiction novel, In Cold Blood. Spoiler in that title, right? The book tells the true story of a brutal murder in rural Kansas and explores the psychology behind such a senseless act. The book investigates a family murdered supposedly without motive or emotion, just pure brutality. So although Capote may have made the term popular, in cold blood as a certain state of mind or behavior has its origins that can be traced way, way back to the ancient Greeks and the theory of humorism, which wasn't about stand-up comedy. Ba-boom. It's the belief that humours or bodily fluids influence human behaviour and health. And no, not just periods, there's a whole bunch of them. And it became super popular during the medieval period. And treatments to balance your humours and make you a nice, normal, affable person were everywhere. They included bloodletting, vomiting, and enemas. Wow, so I guess not everything's changed. So the four humours were phlegm. It would make a person calm and thoughtful, or unemotional if there's too little. Yellow bile associated with qualities such as assertiveness. So too much would be passion, too little irritability. Black bile would make a person introspective and serious. but it could then lead to sadness or depression. And then, of course, blood. It's been associated with vitality and life. Well, each humour also had a baseline temperature. So if you suffered from too much or too little, your personality would suffer too. And it could be that you're too hot, too cold, too warm. Ah. So we're looking at this context. Blood is considered warm as a baseline. So if you have too much, you'd be hot-blooded and therefore too lively, too passionate. And if you were deficient, you'd be cold-blooded and have zero emotion. Now, honestly, these concepts do seem a bit bonkers now. However, when we talk about blood and periods, let's talk about periods. We still talk about the emotions and personalities that are set off by these bodily fluids. So it's not completely gone. And clearly, the phrase itself is still constantly talked about in our culture today. We use the term in cold blood often. Hence, I wouldn't be doing this if it was just a rare form of speech. But of course, the idea that we can try and balance out our bodily fluids by all sorts of methods and make us temperate normal humans, well, that didn't work, did it? And it's not really gone any much further to understand exactly why we are who we are, why we react certain ways. But it's still really quite interesting philosophical concept that we have been trying to get to the bottom of since ancient Greek times, medieval times. And when it comes down to death and murder, we are really still searching for what drives people to commit the crime in cold blood or otherwise. Could we also have that capability to commit a similar act? Is there some darkness that exists in all of us that's just waiting to come to the surface? Can we even change our true nature? Is there a bigger meaning or purpose on how or why we're put together as we are? Whew, this could turn into like a complete philosophical rabbit hole, but as I'm basically sat here talking to myself in my lounge, I'm going to stop. So anyway, in summary, the next time you hear the phrase in cold blood, remember, it's not just a figure of speech. It's a poignant reminder of the complexities of crime and the human psyche. Or not. Thanks for joining me on this exploration. Oh, thanks for joining me to talk about in cold blood. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. So until next time, stay curious.